Hey, everybody, this is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and over there is the Catwoman to my Batman?
Kinky. Chris.
Yes, we are Amazing Fantasy Football, and we are here to cover some draft reactions because, newsflash, the NFL draft just happened
What?
yesterday, and the day before, and the day after that, or the day before that. But let's start off with how you doing today, Chris?
Feeling a little under the weather. Folks at home might be able to hear the difference in my voice, but I'm going to push through and give you some A-grade post-draft analysis. Almost said pre.
It's probably more like D or C, but, I speak for myself only.
There you go. But otherwise, life is good. What a freaking draft, and how are you doing?
I'm okay. Got some good sleep last night. Got some coffee in me. When I'm going to record at night, we're doing in the morning just to kind of cover all aspects of the draft. The show's going to be out a little bit later. Still going to be out on a Sunday like we have been, but it's just going to be a little bit later in the day, mainly because we wanted to make sure that there wasn't any like late draft surprises, anything like that, any sort of like weird bonkers news that happened like later in the draft. Like, I don't know, all of this off season.
Plus, we were on vacation this weekend, in a manner.
Yeah,
speaking.
I just got back. Went and visited Chris over in his the great state of Illinois, where gas is very expensive. But I'm talking like a dad now, so let's keep on going with that news, Chris.
All right. Some news. Oh, see, there it goes. My apologies. So for those who don't know, A.J. Brown was traded to the Eagles.
More or less, they took the A.J. Brown and they turned him into Traylon Burks.
Yep, there you go. That's a good way to say it. Yeah, we'll kind of expound upon that.
Saved money on not giving A.J. Brown an average of $25 million a year.
Yep.
Which is what the Eagles gave him.
Oh, not rumor mill. Brown himself said they offered 16. Tennessee offered A.J. Brown 16 before deciding to move him.
We talked about it before we started recording.
Yeah.
Whatever. Let's move on to the next.
Let's finish up the news.
Well, actually, before we move on, where does that leave the Titans and where does that leave the Eagles now after that trade? Like I said, the Titans more or less took that trade with A.J. Brown, turned it into Traylon Burks. You weren't super in love with Traylon Burks before the draft. Not that you hated him, but you just weren't like
he wasn't
maybe not as high as I was. Who was not as high as some. Some were like, I've seen Traylon Burks going like number one in people's dynasty rookie rankings, which I was like, okay. Which, being a fantasy analyst myself, I'm still relatively new for the dynasty thing, so I kind of like to look at those just to kind of gauge where I am versus, everyone else. And I'm just like, number one overall? Like, we can talk about that later, but that's interesting. Titans still have Robert Woods, who they traded for in the offseason, who's coming back from an ACL injury, but that happened in like the end of October, if memory serves correct. So he might be ready for the beginning of the season, might be put on the PUP. Hard to say right now where it's May 1st, But they did draft, the Titans also drafted Daz Newsome last year as well. Didn't see hardly any playing time, but he was a raw kind of talent or whatever. It's not like they don't have wide receiving weapons, but it's an interesting move by them, to say the least.
I don't get it. I can get my head around not wanting to pay A.J. Brown $25 million. I could absolutely get my head around that. I get it. I still think 16 is a little insulting. From a real life football perspective, I think I guess the Titans think they can plug in their rookie and just move on like nothing happened. But I'm hearing scuttlebutt about Tannehill maybe not getting extended or saying, refusing the extension. It's a very run-heavy attack. A.J. Brown goes from one run-heavy attack to another one. So I don't know, production-wise, fantasy-wise, dynasty-wise, if we can expect a whole hell of a lot from him in terms of like a top 10, top 12 guy. I think he's more like a wide receiver too. And then going to Tennessee, Woods should be fine, but he's going to miss some reps. And I think that's why they're bringing Traylon Burks. Somebody's got to take these reps. Does that mean Burks is going to be A1 plus ready on week one? No, I don't think so. And I don't think anybody expects that. I assume they're getting back a healthy Derrick Henry. The team is built around him, and they paid him instead of a receiver. I completely disagree from every perspective, but it's what they did. I think it lowers the value of Brown. I don't think it's a great landing spot for Burks, although some people are saying the 101 or something crazy like that. And I think we'll get into this later in the show. It kind of raises the value of some of these established elite wide receivers in in the league, especially the young ones like a CD or Jamar Chase.
Okay, so what about, you kind of cover the Eagles side. I don't know if the Eagles are really that run heavy of an attack. I mean, I guess if you consider Jalen Hurts running the ball, then yeah, I'm thinking more like, I get what you're saying now. Let's move along to our next one.
The Eagles did lead the league in rushing last year.
Well, in my face.
We got a little bit more.
I mean, yeah, I get it. Like AJ Brown, wide receiver 2. Yeah, Devonta Smith moving forward. I didn't really see him as a
see
wide receiver 1 there, anyways. He probably would have been outside of AJ Brown going there. I don't know.
But it's like Marquis
Brown's. I feel like he's going to get more short yardage work. You know, some crossing routes and everything. And Devonta Smith is going to be the guy that takes the top off of defense. You know, that sort of thing.
On the next Brown, speaking of run heavy, Marquis Hollywood Brown, because of his concern about his 3 full years in a run heavy, less pass centric attack with Mr. Lamar Jackson, he gets traded to the Cardinals. So. Not so run heavy, they throw a ton. So, I like that for Marquis. I think the dynasty managers are doing a little happy dance. And I think the Ravens are just going to do kind of what Tennessee's doing, just wash, rinse, repeat. Draft a guy, play him for 3 or 4 years. He's not going to get 80, 90, 100 catches. No way. He won't even, he'll be lucky to get 120 targets. And then just draft another guy. Okay. So I assume the guy in Baltimore we want to look at is Rashad Bateman from last year, a first-round pick. That's important to mention, draft capital. But until I see Jackson do something through the air, I don't know if I care too much. I think it's more of a yay for Hollywood.
I think it's a yay for to stick on the Ravens side of the ball. I think it's a yay for Mark Andrews managers as well.
Yeah, they're true.
Because I mean, like. They still have Rashad Bateman. There's plenty, and like I was gonna say with the Titans too, is that there's still quite a few wide receivers that are available in free agency that I think over the next week or even 2 weeks we're gonna see kind of like teams were just waiting to see how the draft played out, and that there's guys out there that can easily be signed to these teams that need a wide receiver presence and a veteran one. You have Will Fuller's. I mean, the shell of Julio Jones is still there. There's some slot receiving weapons out there as well. I'm not going to go down the list, but there's still wide receiver free agents out there available.
Absolutely.
That the Ravens could easily pick up and sign. Fuller would be excellent for that team. He's a better Marquis Brown anyways. Smaller, fast guy, knows how to run better routes. Has health concerns like Marquise Brown, but still. Yeah, Mark Andrews has shown that he can more or less carry an offense. He did it last year as far as the primary pass catching option.
I think this solidifies him as the tight end 1. Period.
Interesting. Dude, as the guy who has Mark Andrews in our dynasty league, right. I love you for saying that. I'm not like in love with you, but
excuse me.
Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. That's me making a heart. Yeah, they do let's move on to the Cardinals side. Like you kind of covered it. I love it for Marquise Brown going to the Cardinals. Don't forget that he played with Kyler in college for a year, I believe. They overlapped in Oklahoma. I don't necessarily love that narrative, but I'm kind of worried about DeAndre Hopkins there. Like he's had some injury issues going in. Like since he got traded to the Cardinals, he missed a pretty significant time last year. And I just think that this gives the Cardinals a really great wide receiver too that can be their one if Nuke continues to be injury riddled, or if Marquise Brown continues to have a lack of health too, that helps Nuke Hopkins as well. Like. I think this is all good. Like, I think it really hurts your Zach Ertz managers in Dynasty or guys who are really looking forward to drafting him in redraft. But, I think it's good for Marquise Brown. I think you could look at him as a wide receiver 3, or as of right now, look to draft him as your wide receiver 3 in redraft.
Easy. Yeah. I mean, the only pushback would be they like to spread it around a lot. And that goes for Hopkins and Brown and Ertz, etc. So
there's
that would be
enough
the
balls to go around that
exactly.
that Nuke and Hollywood could easily both be supported by
lots of volume,
Kyler.
lots of volume. Amen to that. Another bit of significant news here. We've got Melvin Gordon re-signing with the Broncos. So, I think it's a good thing for Javonte because it's a familiar face. And I think they were going to take the next, I think Javonte and the Broncos are going to take the next step this year and give him more of the pie. What do you think, Josh?
I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, if you were a Javonte Williams manager in Dynasty or a guy looking forward to drafting him highly in the up and coming redraft for Dynasty or for regular fantasy football, does it kind of take some wind out of your sails, some air out of your balloon, whatever? Yeah, sure it does, but I still think that I'm looking for Javonte Williams to take a step forward this year. And instead of it being more of a 50-50 like it was last year with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, I think it's going to be more, obviously it's more of a prediction than, based on any facts or anything, but I think it's going to be more of a 2-to-1 split or, a 60-40 split. That's pretty close to 2-to-1, but still split with favoring Javonte over Melvin Gordon. The front office knows what this guy is, knows what he brings to the team. And the new head coaches and everything are just like, yeah, let's bring him back, bring back a known commodity versus a wild card coming in out of the draft. And it was only a 1-year deal too. I don't think it's anything to worry about Javonte long term.
And they didn't draft a single running back. In fact, they went heavy off offensive line and defense. One receiver, which fine.
They didn't really need wide receivers. They didn't really need any other offensive weapons anyway. So
yeah,
exactly. Pretty deep on everything.
Literally just that receiver in the 5th round, guy out of Stanford. Other than that, all offensive line and defense. That says something for Javonte. Last bit of, I guess you could call it news. I don't think we decided if it was rumor mill still or not. Apparently the Jets had offered San Fran the 110, so that's the 10th overall pick, and a 5th round pick for Debo and San Francisco's 2nd round pick. So you can understand why San Fran said no. And they were also...
They didn't say no, they said hell no.
Well said. I mean, that's probably all we need to say about that. I just thought it was interesting as it relates to some of the guys we'll discuss today.
Yeah. I mean, and do we want to do a little segue into, I guess it's not in order or anything, but that kind of segues into one of the guys I love coming out of this draft, Garrett Wilson, which the Jets used that first, that 10th overall pick. I love it for the sense that, I liked Wilson going into the draft, but I wasn't as high on him as some of the draftniks were, the quote professionals, the guys that just get paid to do it. They probably know more than I do. And that's fine. I'm not trying to belittle them or anything. I just think that if Wilson would have gone to the Patriots or a team that just didn't have a big arm quarterback, I would not be as high on Garrett Wilson, but he's also got help around him he's got help around him in the sense that Elijah Moore is there to kind of do the underneath crossing route stuff. You have a big bodied wide receiver with Corey Davis on the other side. And then you have Garrett Wilson who brings that blazing speed to take the top off of defenses. And you have Zach Wilson with an explosive arm to get him that ball when he's running deep. And supposedly the Jets offensive line is going to at least come into this, as of right now, is going to come into this next season healthy and hopefully gives Zach Wilson a little bit more time back there to actually be able to throw that ball super deep to Garrett Wilson. I think it's going to be more in a year one of maybe more of a Deshaun Jackson-esque, a real boom bust guy. I'm not going to say he's going to give you every week production, but he's a good guy to have on your roster and maybe even in your starting lineup some weeks, especially if there's some positive news coming out of training camp that, he's really meshing well with Zach Wilson and everything like that. If you hit on those boom weeks, Garrett Wilson could be great for your starting lineup. Obviously, I'm talking dynasty here, not so much redraft. This is right after draft. We're talking more dynasty anyways, but still. Garrett Wilson is one of the reasons why Jameson Williams left Ohio State because, Jameson Williams, that is, was having a hard time getting reps behind Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, a guy that our Chris really liked, who went to a pretty decent landing spot as well. But I just like Garrett Wilson never had a record-breaking season like Jamar Chase did, but he is a guy who consistently got better throughout his college career from his freshman year to his abbreviated sophomore year. Remember that was 2020. It was shortened by probably mainly by the pandemic and everything. There was a much shorter Big Ten season that year. In 2020, he had played in 5 less games, had 13 more receptions, almost 300 more yards, and an extra touchdown. So in 5 less games, that's a big step right there. And then last year, it was his first year over 1,000 yards. He was well on pace for over 1,000 in that abbreviated 2020 season as well. Got 12 touchdowns last year as well. So I like him. Like, he's a real svelte guy. So might get beat up by some more man coverage, but they're going to have a hard time keeping up with him too. So,
yep.
Mm-hmm. It's just like, sorry, I wanted to it was just a real great segue there. So
no, and I'm gonna continue the segue train. I will say this: we're going to talk about some other receivers and landing spots where I'm just not in love with a lot of wide receiver landing spots, really landing spots as a whole in this draft from a dynasty perspective. But this might be my favorite. I think he's got a chance here. So let's stick with the Jets. And I'll go to Breece Hall, the low hanging fruit, the guy everybody wants to talk about. He ends up going at the beginning of the fourth, the 204 to the Jets.
You want to say that one again?
To the 204, the fourth.
You said pick. The beginning of the fourth.
Did I? I'm sorry. Yeah. The fourth pick in the second round. And this is important to mention. They tried to move up to the first. They were going to potentially move up to the first. Something fell through. So all I'm saying, it's worth mentioning. That tells you what they think about Mr. Breece Hall.
Well, the Jets did move back into the first. Were they going to move up there?
They were going to move back into the first. Yes. Or move back into the first a second time for 4 first-round picks overall.
Wowzers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's easy to jump right on the bandwagon here and be like, hey, with 3 or 4, it ended up being 3, but with that many first-round picks, clearly they're going to get high draft grades. I also love the players they took. Obviously, the second question is, what does that say about Michael Carter? I think he'll have a role, especially in year one, in Breece Hall's year one. But, if they were in love with Michael Carter, they're not doing this to take Breece Hall. Oh, and they did
leave Tevin Coleman, though, Chris. I mean, he just re-signed with the Jets, too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But it is also furthermore important to mention that they did leapfrog 2 running back needy teams in Atlanta and Houston to take Hall in the second.
It was smart. It was smart to do so.
Very smart. So they love the guy. They're doing everything they can to support Zach Wilson, in my opinion. I can't jump on that bandwagon yet. I still need to see more from Zach Wilson. Obviously, he did not have a good year, but neither did Lawrence. I think most people would say the jury's still out. It's the nice way to put it. But again, they're doing everything they can to support him. My question would be, maybe, is he still the 101, giving him the landing spot? Where are you at on that? Because you definitely don't want to take a receiver there, right, Josh?
Just because all the landing spots for, I guess this kind of goes into a bigger discussion, which I think it goes into a bigger discussion of like this whole like dynasty draft, rookie draft as a whole. I feel like, and we kind of talked about this before we started recording, is that it's kind of a year where you're looking at a lot of these players as more future help than not immediate help. In a sense that, and I kind of touch on this later, but a lot of these wide receivers, they landed in decent spots. Your Chris Olave's, your excuse me, I have them written down here somewhere. Your Chris Olave's, your let me.
Bro, I've got most of them in my notes.
Out.
Chris Olave,
your Chris Olave's, your Drake London's, your Jahad Dotsons.
Mm-hmm.
They have they're like, oh, there's decent quarterbacks there now, but who's their quarterback next year or 2 years from now? Well, that makes them like enticing for this year, but even then, they're still rookies. And a lot of these guys are real small dudes. Drake London isn't, but they're just small, fast guys.
Fast guys, yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not in love with this rookie draft in general. I mean, I know you traded up to get the 1-on-1 in our dynasty league. That's fine. There was another trade up, and I was just like, I think this is the year that I'm just going to stand pat for right now and until the draft plays out, because we do a slow draft for ours, which I kind of encourage a lot of people to do for rookie.
Oh, yeah.
It's just easier. Takes the pressure off of trying to get everyone together for a draft. I think if you're doing a slow draft, I think you shouldn't move up until there's someone worth moving up for that you think is going to be very helpful for your team, not just this year, but in the years to come.
Yep.
Which I don't know who those guys are immediately. Back to your question, sorry to kind of go off on a tangent there, but I think Breece Hall is still the 101, and I think it really hurts Michael Carter. I wonder if Michael Carter is just not the guy that we was hoping he was, and Breece Hall is more of a guy that can do it all, whereas Michael Carter is more of a guy that has some physical limitations, and that's his size.
Yeah.
You know?
He does.
I don't think he's built like MJD to be able to do it all.
He does catch the ball well, so if they want to spell Breece in the first season, kind of a la Jonathan Taylor, fine. Which they should, but the Jonathan Taylor...
He had a crap ton of usage in college.
For sure, but the Jonathan Taylor situation was vastly different in that Mac was a vet by then. This is just Carter's second year, so yeah. But still, yeah, give him a little bit of a break. That's pretty much all I had on Hall. Just last little note there, Leonard Fournette is probably a winner here. I think a few folks had him kind of going in that area of the draft to a winning team. So yeah, Fournette has the reins. Who do you have?
Let's stick with the running backs here. I got another guy that I love. I did a little spiel on him a week or two ago, and that is Amir White. I know that I wanted to do all deep dives, and I knew Chris would be upset with me, so he's my big deep dive, I guess. Okay. He was taken in the 4th round, pick 122 overall by Oakland. The reason why I kind of liked him, and this is mainly based on this, and it's not. I liked Zamir White, and I have a whole bit on him like a week or two ago. So it's not just like, oh, he landed in Oakland, and it's not because of this.
It's true.
Oakland decided not to pick up Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option.
Nice.
One of the main reasons why I like Zamir White's landing spot. Obviously, I talked about him already. That's fine. But I really wonder if the new Raiders regime with Josh McDaniels and everyone, I wonder if Josh Jacobs just isn't their guy, it's just like, well, the previous regime drafted this dude. He's actually been Josh Jacobs. Like you look at the numbers, he's been pretty solid. But like, as I think a lot of dynasty play or fantasy football players know that there's been times where Josh Jacobs really just left you wanting more, despite the end of the year numbers. It's just. It's real odd, like that you look at his end of the year numbers and you're still like, why does this guy have why do I have a bad taste in my mouth with this guy? Especially after last year where Jacobs had like 54 receptions. And even then he was just like,
that's good.
Okay. And White could just be a depth guy, or what if Josh McDaniels brings that New England style of rotating running backs to Oakland, just the running back carousel. Each guy has their role, or just kind of rotate him in and out. If one gets hot, it's that game, like Kyle Shanahan does it a lot too. Like we're just going hot hand here. New England's more of each running back has his role kind of thing. And Zamir White definitely has a role. We're not saying that he can't catch. Well, we covered this before. He just really wasn't asked to do so a lot in college. He's more of a straight, one cut guy, kind of, maybe a little Adrian Peterson-esque. Not Adrian Peterson, not direct comparison. And maybe that's what Josh McDaniels wants, and he just needs more of a goal line guy. Like, remember, even though Josh Jacobs has, some, a fair amount of touchdowns, I believe Kenyon Drake was brought in to be like more of the goal line guy because Josh Jacobs really struggled at the stripe. Zamir White said that guy, he can do it. I don't know. Maybe he's the potential Oakland goal line, guy. It's hard to say. Like I said, he's a 4th round pick, a lot of running backs and quarterbacks and people. It was a weird draft. So a lot of, especially running backs, slid in this draft. And I don't know if it's necessarily based on their talent. It was just like a lot of teams have running backs established, It wasn't a year where teams were super running back needy, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So I just like, if you're looking at maybe he's probably going to be a 2nd round pick at the earliest in dynasty rookie drafts. Yep. So don't be like, oh, Josh said Zamir White's going to be the bee's knees. No, I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that as a Josh Jacobs manager, you need to like ship him away for a bag of balls. I'm just saying that maybe Zamir White's a guy to look for that could bring you some production this year, and maybe even in year 2 bring you more production than he did this year. That sort of thing.
He could end up starting a few weeks for you. Don't think that he's going to plug and play. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about two guys at once. Let's put it that way. Two guys that are kind of, people are in love with their landing spot. We've already talked about how we're not in love with a lot of landing spots, so these guys are kind of getting pushed up, getting a lot of hype. First one is Christian Watson goes number 34 overall. That's beginning of the second to the Green Bay Packers. I'm on record on this very show saying I don't like Watson due to him being very, very raw. A small school, never over 1,000 yards, despite being a 4-year guy. I mean, their projected starters right now are Christian Watson, Randall Cobb, and Allen Lazard. Not very inspiring. So I'm just, I'm not going to say I'm out on the guy. There's going to be a point probably in the end of the first, maybe beginning of second, where the rubber meets the road. And if he's there, I mean, I don't have a bunch of running backs I love. He is a size speed specimen. He could be a project. I seem to recall Devontae Adams being a little bit of a project, but Devontae Adams was dominant in college with Derek Carr. So I'm not feeling I like the landing spot well enough. Just I wish it had been one of these other higher ranked receivers we talked about. The next guy, kind of in the same vein in terms of a great landing spot, is really getting a lot of hype, especially in the draft Twitter and fantasy Twitter community. Sky Moore goes to the Chiefs. Has only played wide receiver for 3 years now, all 3 years in college. He played quarterback and running back in high school. He will place a lot of slot for Kansas City. In Dynasty, I'm not so sure he's going to hit year one, but the prospect of having Mahomes' #1 target, I mean, is worth it, right? Should we put him above other bigger, more pro-ready rookie receivers we talked about today?
I think that there's going to be a lot of paint by numbers analysis as far as Christian Watson, Packers, Aaron Rodgers, Sky Moore, Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. I kind of like Christian Watson going to Green Bay. I don't necessarily like Sky Moore going to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs already have a small, fast guy, and that's Mecole Hardman. Now, has Mecole Hardman been all that great in this, 3 years now in the NFL?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. No, but he has a role on the team, and I think that people are really forgetting about Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling signing with the Chiefs. Are they going to be great replacements for Tyreek Hill? No, it's kind of taking two guys to replace the one, but I really think people are forgetting about those two signing with the Chiefs and then be like, oh, Sky Moore's coming in and he's the next Tyreek Hill. He's not.
No.
No.
Exactly. That's exactly
why I want Sky Moore in the first round of my Dynasty draft. It kind of depends on how the Dynasty draft goes, and we'll probably have more about that all next week. As of right now, I don't want him in the first round. I want him more in like the second, and probably more like the middle of the second. I know I'm trying to maybe get
the numbers don't add up.
Value out of him, but I don't want to overpay for him either.
Yeah. Like I said,
I would rather try and take a rookie at the end of the first round. Of course I'm taking a rookie. A rookie running back at the end of the first round that has upside and trying to fill out my running back carousel than a guy who, I don't know, wide receivers can pop out of nowhere.
Exactly. And hey, why not move back, pick up a similar player? Yes, probably a worse player, but pick up a similar player in this draft and pick up a second next year or a late first or so on and so forth. Next year's draft, a lot of people feel, me included, is going to be quite a bit better. Last couple of things about Sky Moore. He couldn't beat out Dwayne Eskridge, who is actually a comparable player to him, who played at the exact same school. He couldn't beat out Eskridge, who also never had 1,000 yards in college. I guess they run a lot. Speaking of
Michigan. And if anyone's wondering, Dwayne Eskridge was drafted by Seattle last year.
Yep, and hasn't done much of anything. He's still got time to develop to work out.
He also has two great receivers in front of him. So
yeah, that's a good point.
One borderline elite, one good receiver, and
Just to wrap up, Christian Watson and Sky Moore are going to be pushed up because of their landing spot. Both me and Josh understand that. Just temper your expectations. Let's see if we can get some camp news. These guys are raw.
You want to keep going with my next guy, which is, well, of course, it's Jameson Williams. Like I said last week, Williams is not going to be a year one contributor. I don't want to keep rehashing what I said last week. I just wanted to be like, this is a guy who I liked last week, and I like it even more with his destination. But like I was kind of saying earlier, he's not gonna be a year one contributor. If you're sitting there in the middle of the first or even the beginning of the first, and you're not necessarily looking to compete this year, That's not what Jameson Williams is there for. He's there to look at. He's there for long term. He only has one big year of college production. I get that, and that was last year with Alabama. But he has the speed. He has kind of the height at least. He doesn't quite have the size, but he can bulk up and lose a little. He can lose a little bit of a step to put some muscle on his frame as well. We've covered that in the past. But you're really looking at big picture here. And like I said earlier, with your Chris Olaves, your Drake Londons, your Jahan Dotsons, blah, 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 as far as, well, they have a quarterback this year, but who knows? Is it going to be a rookie quarterback next year? Is that rookie going to be any good? Everyone's saying that about Jameson Williams, too. Here's a fun fact, Chris. The Lions have Jared Goff for the next 3 seasons under contract. Wow. Can they get out of Jared Goff's contract after this year?
So,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, they can. But they technically have him under contract for this year. And honestly, if Goff comes out and balls out, they might be looking at giving him an extension. I'm not saying that this is some bold prediction. I'm just saying that this is an if. The Lions have done everything to put weapons around Jared Goff. They have a good offensive line to protect him. They have a decent running game, which hopefully can stay healthy and take a step up this year. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and if anyone was paying any sort of attention to fantasy football last year, at the end of the season, Amon-Ra St. Brown was like the wide receiver one down the stretch last year. He was amazing. Maybe not the wide receiver one, but darn close to it.
He was on a hot streak for sure.
They're going to get TJ Hawkinson back, who's supposed to be healthy by the beginning of the season. They also have some ancillary. They signed DJ Chark to a 1-year deal too. Chark's had some injury issues as well, but at the beginning of the season, he should be healthy. So come day one for the Lions, they don't necessarily need Jameson Williams to produce day one, but down the stretch, I think it's going to be more like the middle to end of November before you really start seeing the playing field, and maybe more like December when he's really kind of going to be putting up any sort of meaningful stats, if at all, this year. But dude, it's a big picture play, which you need to think about in Dynasty. It's not just what can these guys do for me this year. It's what can they do for me this year and moving forward too. And moving forward is what you need to look for with Jameson Williams. He's going to be, I don't like to use a lot of definitives, but I think he's going to be a major contributor next season. And I think that Jared Goff is going to, outside of some major catastrophe this year, I think Jared Goff is going to be their starting quarterback next year as well.
I wouldn't go that far. The only bit I'll add there is that I think, given the talent of the player, and again,
prediction, sorry,
what the team has done around him, not just on the offensive side of the ball, they could have a pretty decent defense. They got freaking Aiden Hutchinson second overall. Is that whether it's Goff? I think we're clear it's going to be Goff this year. Whether it's Goff next year or a rookie, stranger things have happened. It could be a rookie. Herbert, Burrow. Again, next year's draft is pretty stacked. Either or, if it is Goff or isn't, I think you're heading on the right path. I think they could be a productive fantasy offense here at about midway through this year or well into the next year. And whoever's throwing the ball for him, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. I just think Goff might have something to say about it, to your point. But even if it's not Goff, I think he might be making a good play for the future there with Jameson Williams.
Yes, a guy that, if it's a 105 and I can move up to the 105, I mean, this is coming from the guy in our Dynasty League that has the last pick of the first round this year because it won the championship. If I can move up for a decent enough price, I would probably move up to grab
about a half round or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I agree with you. 100%. Let me finish up with my last guy. We'll change positions here a little bit and go quarterback. I'll be quick just because it does play in a fantasy, clearly, but not as much in a single quarterback dynasty. So let me go with Kenny Pickett here, the low-hanging fruit. But I did want to talk about a little bit.
I think that deserves some discussion, Chris.
Exactly. I think the wide receivers probably take a pretty big hit here with either quarterback, Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, who ends up starting. Not to mention bringing in 2 rookie wide receivers in George Pickens and Calvin Austin. Pickens in the second, Calvin Austin in the fourth. Clearly, and going back to the last, I feel like several years, they're a fan of running 3 wide receiver sets, so they'll still probably have 3 on the field a lot. Obviously, Deontay Johnson, Claypool. Maybe this says something about Claypool moving forward with the Pickens pick. That's a tongue twister. Not really.
Don't forget about Pat Freiermuth being in his second year at tight end as well for that.
Oh, yeah, he's cemented in there. Yeah, and I do have hopes for him, but from a receiver perspective, or should I say from a quarterback and receiver perspective. I'm not in love with what we're going to see, but, hopefully I was wrong. Hopefully Pickett is the guy and Malik Willis isn't for the sake of Pittsburgh. But, I'm not in love with what we're going to see fantasy-wise there. Just to cover a little bit more of the Steelers draft, honorable mention to Connor Hayward. They picked him 6th, 208th overall. So don't get your hopes up, folks. Don't draft this guy. Just wait on the waiver. He could be valuable. He is the brother of all-pro. He's an H-back, yeah. He's the brother of all-pro defensive lineman Cameron Hayward, both of which are the sons of Craig Ironhead Hayward. He may no longer be with us. I don't remember if he's alive or not. But a power back that I watched a lot back in the day, played for Saints and Falcons. Hayward could be listed as a tight end and running back. It's the only reason I bring him up. We can move on. It's not the only set of brothers they have. So Kenny Pickett, just not in love with Deontay and Claypool and the rookie receivers. Freiermuth will probably still be a tight end one because there's not enough of them. But I don't love what we're going to see fantasy-wise from those Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, what do you think about Pickett for Dynasty then?
If you're in a single quarterback Dynasty league and you need a backup, sure, take him in the late 4th, maybe the 5th. That's about it.
Ooh, you think dude? I think he's going to go much higher than that because out of all the quarterbacks that got drafted in this NFL draft, he's got probably one of the clearer paths to starting this year.
And he's got a great franchise around him. I mean, I think Steelers are one of the best franchises.
I think you're looking at him as more of probably a 3rd-round pick, if not a 2nd, and you need him on your team as your 3rd quarterback because he might not start at all this year.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I'm the Mahomes manager who desperately needs a backup quarterback. I'm not going to take Kenny Pickett.
You're going to need to trade for someone then.
Yeah. Or might be another Steelers quarterback in the draft.
I got a quarterback for you, buddy.
Trubisky is actually available in the draft also in our league. So there's that.
I mean, that's the one thing that there was a lot of comparisons about Pickett to Trubisky and that they're kind of the
Pickett
same
can
player,
run.
which is very odd that I'm like, why would you take a player that's very similar to the player you already have on your team?
I would say 2 things. Tomlin emphasized mobility, and second, Pickett can run. So push back on my low opinion of Pickett. Right. Push back on my low opinion of Pickett is he's a running quarterback. Now, he's not a quote running quarterback. Think of Daniel Jones and that kind of hot streak he got on where he was
He can't run 90 yards. We got it.
Yeah, right. No, but he's an athletic guy who can run, who can get down the field. Don't be mistaken. That does give him some value, but I'm still not in love with it.
Cool. I got one more. Since we're doing okay on time, I got one more quarterback I would like to talk about, and I think you were kind of in with him at least, and that's Matt Corral.
Mm-hmm.
Corral.
It's definitely Carroll. It's not Carroll. It's not Carroll. I'm just
kidding. Dude, we're not going down the Tatum hindquarters thing with this guy. All right. I like Matt Corral. He's got a quick release. He's got lots of college experience. He's kind of a raw talent. He's got some issues that need to be hammered out. But I think the Panthers can't afford to sit him for at least part of this year, with Darnold being their starting QB at least at first. Matt Rule has a chance to actually kind of. I don't like the term groom has really taken on a negative connotation as of late, but to kind of mold him, as you will, into an NFL quarterback that he could potentially be, probably better than groom there, and that he could hopefully be the Panthers quarterback of the future. I mean, they have DJ Moore under long-term contract. They have Christian McCaffrey under long-term contract as of right now. Between now and potentially next year, when Matt Corral could be starting, they could take that time to build their offensive lineup so that their young quarterback's not getting beat up and they're just going to throw Sam Darnold to the Wolves for another season. There's a chance that Corral could be starting this year anyways because Darnold gets hurt. He's just as terrible as he was last year. I mean, there's a chance. I'm looking at Corral more in the 4th round kind of territory. Like you're in the flyer territory of your dynasty rookie drafts, that sort of thing. I'm not looking at him in redraft at all, unless there is some sort of major camp news or significant injury to the quarterbacks in front of him. But yeah, man, I just think he's a guy to keep an eye on. And if you're not necessarily in quarterback need, But maybe down the stretch, maybe next year you have some dinosaur quarterbacks as your starters right now. Your Matt Ryans, your Tom Brady's, and you need some dart throws to maybe pick up the mantle next year. Coral could be one of those guys. I mean, you could say the same thing about a lot of the quarterback, Desmond Ridder too. But Coral's a guy that was just like, because of that quick release, I know Chris really covets, which is a good quarterback trait. I think that there's with just the potential weapons around him too. There, it makes him a decent quarterback prospect for a team that is, as of right now, offensive minded.
He's the one I'm hoping slips to me that I can get for a backup. Yeah, he can't do anything for me as a backup next year. Yes, I do need to trade or take a Trubisky or whatever earlier, or whatever. I need somebody to back up, bye weeks injury, etc. But no, I like that. I like that take. I like Matt Corral.
I believe it's. I think it's Corral.
Well, it's spelled like Corral. Yeah, 2 R's is Corral.
Yeah, I think I've heard during the draft they were saying Corral.
That's what I was going to say.
We're going to go with that for now.
Yeah, think a horse pen, a pen for cows, a corral, not the stuff in the ocean.
Like the OK Corral.
Yes, exactly. You want to bring us home, Bash?
Chris, I got something for you. I know in Dynasty, I know you're the Austin Eckler manager.
Oh, right, yes.
Forgive me, I don't remember where the Chargers drafted him, but they picked up Isaiah Spiller. I believe it was in the 4th. Anyways, so as the Austin Eckler manager, you're not necessarily in the position to be taking him. It was a 4th-round pick, the 123 overall.
Thank you.
Oh, that's right. It was right after Amir White. Exactly. Spiller is kind of the guy that I liked, that I was talked about a couple weeks ago. I liked going into the draft, the NFL draft, mainly more because he was kind of a guy that can do it all. He certainly has plenty of receiving work in college, has some blocking ability, not the greatest, but his main knock was speed, but that could have just been a bad 40 time day for him. Could have been some minor injury. I'm not making excuses for his 40 time. I'm just throwing potentialities out there. But as Austin Eckler, a guy who can do it all, but has also had some injury history, as an Austin Eckler manager, would you want to try and draft Spiller to handcuff him to Eckler?
Absolutely. With this caveat,
I'm seeing him still going like the 1st. I think that this is kind of a lot of.
I think I'd have to get back in this. I think I'd have to get in the 2nd. That's probably not going to happen for me, but for other Eckler
I don't
managers,
think that he's going to. I don't think he should be going in the 1st round.
Ditto.
Not at all.
Ditto. But he's one of those perfect examples where landing spot outweighs a bad combine number. Maybe it truly is.
Bad combine number was really his.
Exactly. And dude, he had 74 career receptions in college, but they weren't just like 50 in 1 year, 10 here, and 20 there or whatever. It was like spread out. Yeah, that's impressive to me coming from college. So there's that. There's the injury to history of Eckler that you just mentioned. I will say though, they do love Justin Jackson, so we're probably talking about a next year thing. Unless he wows in
Justin
camp.
Jackson is more of he needs to be paired with Larry Roundtree. Roundtree's a big dude that doesn't catch the ball well. Justin Jackson catches the ball well, but doesn't really do great in power situations. It takes 2 of them to replace Spiller, whereas to replace Eckler, whereas Spiller could just replace Eckler if he were injured, and is a good guy to spell Eckler. I wasn't trying to force a pun there, but
right.
Yeah.
And my point is, I think, we're speculating. I think next year it's still Justin Jackson as the backup running back to Eckler.
They could easily cut Eckler at any time too.
Oh, God. Well, they just signed him a year or 2 ago, but yeah, that would be devastating. Let's hope not. At least not this year.
His dead cap money I'm looking at it right now is next to nothing. Though they're gonna roll with him this year, but they could easily just be like, no, we like this Spiller dude, and just trade him away.
Yeah, but Eckler's cheap. Eckler doesn't have a Zeke contract. It's like
I know. I'm just saying.
Okay.
You know what's cheaper? A rookie running back.
Exactly. Hey, I'm Mr. Running backs don't matter, but for my
anyway, so yeah, like I think you're absolutely right. I think if you're, dude, I'm not saying draft Spiller in the 1st round. No, I'm not saying that at all. But round 2, the end of round 2, more like it. Yeah. I would want Spiller over Zamir White if I talked about Zamir White earlier, but I would definitely want Spiller over Zamir White. I think that there's more potential in Spiller than White. Yeah, White has maybe more year one potential, but long term. Anyways, yeah, spillover White for sure. One more question for you, Chris, and then we'll ride off into the sunset. Kenny Walker the third, or as I heard that he likes to be, he prefers Ken Walker the third, running back. He was drafted by Seattle in the second round.
Also,
how do you feel about him? I wanted to ask you about him because last week or the week before you talked about a guy that you really liked, and he is a do it all back. Maybe he ran a good 40 time. Not much of a
for his size. Absolutely, he did.
Yeah. Kind of more of a 1 year wonder. If memory serves correct. What was the knock on Ken Walker, and why did he go? Like, I don't know.
Ken Walker, he doesn't have a lot of receiving work. Michigan State doesn't throw to their backs a lot. He also had to transfer from I don't remember where. Somebody
doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the things that you could knock against him, and then obviously the presence of Rashad Penny and I guess Chris Carson. I'd say Carson is a afterthought, but I'm going to go and slot him at second or third on the depth chart. Injuries. I know they like the guy, but Penny showed something last year, but it's frustrating because I thought
Penny's deal though was just it was a 1 year, so like
for sure prove it again, or however you want to look at it. Prove it the first time.
Yeah, it was a definite.
So they could get rid of him at any time. It's hard to say. I really liked Penny coming out a handful of years ago. I thought Seattle buried him on the depth chart. He got hurt quite a bit too. Carson outperformed, so maybe Penny wasn't as good as I thought coming out. If that's the case, I got to lean Walker. I think Walker's a heck of a running back. It's not enough to make him the 101 or whatnot, but I just can't see somebody going unless they're in love with the receiver at 102. I think it's still Walker. Again, you're not always making a move for this year, although you think a team picking at 102, 103, 104 needs somebody this year. That's fair, but I'm just saying I think eventually he's the back you want in Seattle.
Yeah, and here's the thing about Chris Carson. He had a neck injury, and it was bad enough that he missed the rest of the year. And there's still, as of a month ago, and this sucks for a guy who I thought was a pretty good second-round pick last year in redraft, and he was at the time. It's just this neck injury. It's a neck injury. It's not his legs or his arms or shoulders or anything like that. It's his neck. It's not his ability of... Yep. It's the ability to continuously keep taking hits at the running back position and in football in general is what's going to be whether he can come back or not. And I think that's why they took Ken Walker. So I think that Walker deserves to maybe be in the first half of the first round. Like I think Pete Carroll's going to get what he wants, finally get what he wants this year as a quarterback who's not going to say, keep letting me throw the ball. Russell Wilson, I'm not saying that Russ is a big baby about it or anything, but Drew Lock is they don't know if they want to throw the ball out with Drew Lock, and they're going to have Penny there and a healthy Ken Walker there, and maybe hopefully for Chris Carson at some point he will be able to come back and play football. But until then, I think Ken Walker was their insurance policy behind Chris Carson.
Whether he just takes 80% of the job or he ends up being another Jonathan Taylor, gets spelled in year one. I think he's still the pick. Okay. I think he's still the pick.
Do you think he's the 102 then?
Yeah. I'm just not in love with many of these receivers. I think he's definitely over Sky Moore and the guy in Green Bay.
I think you're going to have to go a lot higher in the draft to get Ken Walker.
I'm sorry. Oh, then where? No, I'm saying he is the 102. Did you misunderstand me?
Right. But you were like, well, I like him more than Sky Moore. I'm like, yeah, you better like him a lot more if you want to have a realistic chance of getting him.
Yeah, I was just thinking it through. I like Olave, but I don't like his landing spot. I don't like his quarterback. So it's like, yeah, you got to go running back, man.
I saw something that, Jameson Winston threw the ball deep a lot more than you thought last year. Good. A lot more. Anyways, that's been amazing fantasy football. We just did some draft coverage. We haven't quite nailed down next week. We'll probably do some more draft takeaways, but maybe lean a little bit more towards the prepping you for your dynasty rookie draft sort of thing.
Yep.
Because ours starts on Friday the 13th. Dun, dun, dun. That's in 12 days. And some people have already done theirs, which I thought was insane.
Before the draft?
Yeah.
Most
Like,
folks,
why would you do it before the draft? But dude, there's some freaks out there.
I think most
you
folks
know?
do it at the beginning of May. They get excited and they want to do it right after the draft. Don't ever do it before the draft. But you're right, there are people that do that. We'd like to wait a couple weeks to maybe hear a little news, maybe watch a couple trades and free agents work themselves out.
And
So
hopefully we'll have some free agency news again next week as well. Come on, Colts, sign Will Fuller. Come on, Colts. Anyways, until next week, you can follow me on Twitter at JoshAFFB. You can follow Chris, which is on the lower thirds at, I think I'm getting it right now. I'm backwards. That way.
below you.
It's right there, actually.
It's
Amazing Fantasy 7 on Twitter as well. You can, there's also our Discord link that you can get to, which will be in the show notes. And until then, please rate and review us wherever possible, or follow us on Facebook and leave a comment as well. Even if it's a constructive criticism comment, we'll take it. Until next time, everyone, which will be probably approximately a week from now, have a good one.
Adios.